That's number one. You kind of reset.
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
Same shoulder length, and the other.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Real Health with Brandi and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor. Brandi is my other half and the boss, leader, organizer, strategist.
It's too many hats.
All of that.
I'm also a cookie maker.
That's
With
right.
a small team of individuals, made over 500 cookies, sugar cookies, over the last 2 days.
How many
That
did
was
you eat?
pretty impressive. I had a small piece of, we each had one cookie that we split and shared because it broke, so we could test it. So I had like a piece that big.
Convenient. Good.
Yeah. So they were great.
Yeah, well, we're recording on Valentine's Day.
Happy
so
Valentine's.
by the time you watch this, it'll probably be a few days later. But yeah, happy Valentine's
Yeah.
Day.
That's awesome. I'm glad we get
And,
to spend this time together today.
Oh yeah, this is great. Might as well invite our favorite people to join us and celebrate with
Right.
us.
We should have put some hearts up here and made it like
Yeah.
set our stage a little differently.
Right.
We forgot.
We always forget.
So
We didn't celebrate our 20th episode either.
I know. Okay, we got to get better about celebrations.
Okay, but we have a lot to cover. So, Real Health is the podcast where our goal is to help you learn how to feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger. And what we do is we're going to take the latest news articles, we got a lot of them today, and we're going to read them, summarize them, and discuss them, and tell you what it means and how you can apply them to your life and what to avoid, what not to avoid, to really be safe and healthy and protect your family, because we believe the true practitioner in your healthcare should be you.
Absolutely.
And you should take the lead to lead your family. You know, it used to be there was the family doctor. I don't see the family doctor anymore, you know.
Yeah.
They used to even make house calls. And you could call them for anything, and they were your person, you know. But now they're hard to reach. They're too busy. Practices
you often
have
get passed around to different
you have
positions
multiple
and-
positions. One asks you different questions than the other one.
which we
it's-
understand. I mean, we have multiple doctors. Our patients
Yeah.
see multiple doctors as well, but it takes a lot to really make sure that people are known and they feel heard, and that that everyone's aware of what's going on with them. So it takes a lot of strategy and a lot of intentionality to make sure that those things happen. And I don't think that patient care is always at the topmost of every medical organization's to-do list. That's not
They're
the
so
highest
focused
priority.
on crisis care.
Right. Yeah. And reimbursements.
So
often.
you got to be your own health care specialist.
Yeah, because nobody else can do it. I mean, you're the one that has to pay for it. You're the one that has to live with either the condition that you have or
Right.
the repercussions of that condition or treatment of that condition. So you really do. You have to be educated. You have to dive into these things and not just look at it on the surface, because you are the CEO of your own health and your
Yeah,
own
and
life.
don't take other people's opinion for it, not even ours. You know, you hear something, look up the opposite perspective, and then make a decision.
Absolutely.
So we have a lot. Like I said, we have one big article here on stress and how it can cause brain shrinkage, which
It's a little scary.
You know, I wrote the book on stress, multiple books on stress, but then we're also going to talk about how chiropractic care can affect people who've had disc surgery. We have an article about Elon Musk and the latest on
Yeah.
the brain implant.
And we talked about that. You know, we
We
read
did.
that
We
article.
reported on that,
It
but
was one
but
of our
this
first.
time they've actually put it in a human, so
know.
that's interesting. There's a story about stomach cancer. We're talking about an 18-year-old who had a stroke even though she was very healthy. We've got brain tissue that was printed using 3D printing. So there's prosthetic hand that can sense things like
Yeah.
temperature. We have a lot, and that's only a few of them. We have so many.
Yeah.
So I don't know how many we'll get to today. Like I said, the first one we're going to talk about is a big one. So what do you say we dive right
I
in?
think let's do that.
So this is from USA Today. It says stress and other things that can lead to memory loss and brain shrinkage.
Right.
Brain fog, memory loss, difficulty concentrating, and other dementia-like symptoms can be caused by several diseases. Sure, sometimes the real reason behind dead brain cells and loss of gray matter is Alzheimer's, but sometimes memory loss is the result of a treatable disease or condition, a nutritional deficiency, an unhealthy habit, or another reversible issue. To identify the factors that contribute to memory loss and brain shrinkage, 24/7 consulted, and that's the name of the article, I guess, or the publication, consulted a neurologist and reviewed information published on sites of organizations specializing in brain health, such as Alzheimer's Association. Brain atrophy, which means the loss of neurons and the connections between them, occurs naturally, albeit slowly, as we age. I really don't like hearing that. Many of the factors that can reduce the risk of brain shrinkage and memory problems are modifiable, according to Dr. Glenn Finney, neurologist at Geisinger Health System in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Staying active and eating a balanced diet. See, I like this part. Staying active and eating a balanced diet can lead to reduced risk of multiple conditions that can affect brain function. Protecting your head from injury is also important. Another very important factor is restful sleep. I am a big proponent of
You're
sleep.
a huge proponent of that.
The reduced brain function is just one of at least 21 damages you do to your body when you don't get enough sleep. Some of the conditions on that list also increase the risk of Alzheimer's, which is the sixth leading cause of death in the United States. So they list about a dozen of them, 16, 17 different causes of memory loss and brain shrinkage. You know, if you have elderly people in your family, you've probably experienced some dementia. You know, and you know, or some of you may have experienced temporary memory loss. You've experienced temporary forgetfulness and all of that. So we can talk about that. So number one on his list is, was it a he?
Not sure.
Dr. Finney, is stress. And this doctor says chronic stress creates a number of biochemical changes in the body, including increasing cortisol levels, which can lead to a cascade of increase in other chemicals that can trigger cell death. Psychological stress over time can kill brain cells, Finney added. Research has shown that chronic stress may reduce brain size and cause impaired memory in middle-aged adults.
Yeah, so my challenge with that is most people generalize stress, and we know that stress isn't good or bad, right? Stress is just a force. So if you've read this, you know, one of these books here, you'll understand that. But stress we need in our lives. So there's a generalized statement often used where people say, just reduce your stress. Don't be stressed out. Get rid of stuff in your life that stresses you. Well, if that were the case, most of us would get rid of our families and our jobs and right. You know, some of us volunteer in areas doing 500 cookies over 2 days. Very stressful. I'm going to tell you, I only had dough for 350. So that was very, very stressful. I don't think that reduced my brain matter because I've also increased my ability to handle certain kinds of stresses. So it doesn't affect me. You know, some stresses affect me, right? There's some I'm not prepared for, some that kind of come out of the blue, and I can feel the changes in my body.
Yeah. So what if you're somebody who just loves baking?
Right.
You could do it all day. Like someone who likes to do jigsaw puzzles, they'll stay up all night. They'll stay up all night and do it. And they're like, they don't consider that emotional or psychological stress.
Correct.
And another person who's got a gun to their head saying, put this puzzle together or something bad's going to happen to you.
Right.
You know, or you better do a good job of putting this puzzle together because you have a grade, you're going to be graded on it. That's different. So it's also the pressure we put on ourselves
100%.
as well. Always remember stress has three dimensions. Real short of it is there is a physical component of stress, there is a chemical component of stress, and then there's also a psycho-emotional component of stress. And all three, you imagine they're coins. The physical side, the stress has to be balanced. So one side of that coin is exercise, the opposite is rest. You have to
Right.
balance the two. When it comes to chemical, one side is deficiency, like they even mentioned in the article here, certain nutritional deficiencies, but the other side of the coin is toxicity. So you
Right.
have to feed the deficiencies and eliminate toxicity. And then the third one, the psycho-emotional, that one's the easy one, is feed your brain with positives and work on reducing the negatives.
Correct. Yep.
And so that may mean
So-
not watch certain things on TV or eliminate certain people from your life.
Yeah, I was going to say it might be eliminating certain relationships that are toxic
Right.
or not. So yes, there are times in our life where we need to remove the stresses that are unhealthy, that are unmanageable.
Right.
But we also need to train our bodies to be able to handle more stress so that we can grow and develop, because that's really where that
and
that
you know
resides.
it talks about chronic stress, long-term stress, but you know what? Short-term stress will cause forgetfulness too.
Yeah.
So does grief.
Yes.
People who are grieving. I spoke to a group of ladies who had lost a child to overdose, and they're all grieving. And I said, "How many of you experienced forgetfulness during this grieving time?" Everybody put their
Oh,
hand
yeah.
up, and that's a fact. You're gonna have that. You're gonna have trouble sleeping. You're gonna have trouble remembering things. You're gonna have trouble with your appetite. Short-term stress is, let's say you have a test and you're walking into the college classroom to take a test, and you're so stressed because this test means a lot and you want to do well on your test, but then you trip on the doorway coming in.
Right.
You forget everything. Instantly your memory gets erased. Now, it didn't go away. You just lost the ability
To access
to
it.
access it because you were already stressed, and when you tripped, you thought you were going to fall.
Right.
And the minute you thought you were going to fall, your life flashed before you and you forgot everything you studied the night before. So that's short-term stress causing short-term memory loss. You'll remember it all, hopefully, if you take a couple of deep breaths. The next one they mention is homocysteine is an amino acid that studies have pegged as a cofactor in memory loss, according to Finney. A simple blood test can show homocysteine's levels in the blood. Doctors regularly screen for it in people presenting memory problems. The good news is that the amino acids levels can be easily treated with supplements and or simple diet changes like less meat. Homocysteine can be a risk factor for vascular disease, which is the second biggest cause of dementia in the U.S. This is because of impaired blood and oxygen flow to the brain. We have so many patients. I mean, it's a small percentage, but it's a large number. So it's probably like 1%, maybe less than 1% of patients who instantly, the word supplement, when it shows up, they go, "Oh, I don't believe in supplements."
That's interesting.
Well, here you go. Here's a neurologist who believes in supplements. So supplements are just another way of giving nourishment and nutrition to your body.
Because the reality is, you've heard us talking and you've read yourselves about how our food sources are really not protected. We know that we don't have an organization who has the capacity or the reach to actually monitor what we're taking in fully. And so we have to be cautious about that. Like our food sources are so important that we're getting the nutrients. So just know you're probably not going to be able to in the food that we have presented to us right now. So you're going to have to really work really hard and be really intentional. And if time is an issue, you may have to resort to supplements. So
just make sure your supplement, and we talked about this at the last podcast, is make sure it's independently checked by a third party to make sure that the supplements are effective and
do food grade. Don't do whole food supplements. Don't
saying I don't
stay
believe
away
in
from
supplements.
synthetics.
Yeah, saying I don't believe in supplements is like saying I don't believe in salad.
Right.
Although I did meet a celebrity, one of the sports announcers, I forget his name, said he never eats anything but meat, protein.
Oh, that's interesting.
He doesn't eat any vegetables whatsoever, and he's in his 60s already and looked healthy. I don't know. Number 3 was diabetes. Diabetes is the most common illness associated with generalized brain atrophy, according to Finney.
Yeah.
Generalized brain atrophy is when the entire brain has shrunk as opposed to parts of it. If the condition remains uncontrolled, it becomes a major risk factor for developing Alzheimer's and vascular dementia. Chronically high glucose levels in the blood can damage many organs in the body, including the brain, he explained. Too much sugar can impair functional connectivity, which is how brain regions are linked, and brain matter, leading to shrinkage, according to Harvard Medical School. It's so funny because 2 weeks ago I was talking to a patient. This is before I saw this article, and she said, "Oh, my father was diagnosed with dementia," and I said, "Well, you need to reduce his blood sugar." And she goes, oh, no, it's vascular dementia. It has nothing to do with diabetes. And I didn't have time to get into it going, well, that's what diabetes causes. That's what he just said. He said vascular Alzheimer's and vascular dementia are a result of uncontrolled blood sugar.
Right.
And, so hopefully she's listening to this.
Yes.
No offense, but please, I mean, we cannot be, so as people get older, they go, I'm old, I can eat whatever I want. You go, well, then you got to watch it even more now. I think probably when you're a teenager, you can eat what you want.
Yeah. I mean, your metabolism is very different. Your activity level is very different.
Yeah.
We're not saying you should, but your body can probably handle a little bit more of the load.
Yeah.
At certain ages than others.
It's true. So literally, they're talking about changing the name of dementia to type 3 diabetes. It's
fascinating.
It's that prevalent and dangerous, but no one's doing it. I've not yet. I mean, we have 15,000 patients over the past 20 some years. I've never heard of any of my patients' doctors when someone is diagnosed with dementia to say, oh, okay, it's probably a blood sugar issue.
Right.
Yet the articles from scientists, not medical doctors, all link blood sugar to dementia. Moving on. Number 4, blood pressure. Blood pressure is becoming a very important target for protecting brain health. This is one reason the high blood pressure standard level, which is recommended as healthy, has been lowered, he noted. The new definition of hypertension, according to the American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology, is blood pressure higher than 130/80. It used to be 140/90 until 2017. Narrower blood vessels and blockage of the arteries as a result of high blood pressure can impair blood and oxygen flow to the brain, which in the long term can lead to mild cognitive impairment and dementia. Now, I am very much against this because blood pressure is not a disease. It's the result of narrowing of blood vessels. And so if the blood vessels are getting narrow already, and then you lower the blood pressure, then how much blood's really getting through?
Right.
So the reason your body chooses to raise your blood pressure, and it's always your body that chooses it. It's not it's not like a cold that you catch. It's not a virus. It's not a bacteria. Your nervous system controls your heart and says, hey, blood's not getting to certain tissues.
It's a response.
We need to increase pressure so we can get more blood to these tissues. That's why when you run on a treadmill, you have higher blood pressure.
Right.
If your blood pressure stayed at, what are you saying, 130/80, while you're running on a treadmill, you'll pass out because you don't have enough pressure to get blood to everything that you need as much as you need. That's why heart rate goes up, pressure goes up, all that stuff. I completely disagree with this part of this. I did a 2-hour lecture called Cholesterol and the Mystery of Heart Disease. We attacked all of that stuff. Anyways, just lowering blood pressure and not going after the cause of the increased blood pressure is a very, very dangerous thing. Yep. But that's what's happening all the time, everywhere. I prefer you all not let your primary care doctor monitor and check your heart functions, but actually see a cardiologist. Number 5 is tobacco. Anything that reduces oxygen to the brain can lead to brain shrinkage, and that's nicotine, toxic to neurons.
Yeah.
Smoking is a huge risk factor, vascular disease, abnormal condition of the blood vessels. So stop smoking.
Right.
And vaping.
And that's a given.
Obesity is number 6. It's not 100% clear how obesity affects brain health. And again, obesity is not a disease.
Correct.
Obesity is a result of maybe other diseases.
Or
it
not
can be
great choices.
Or choices, lifestyle choices. It can be because it can lead to many conditions and diseases such as diabetes and high blood pressure.
Right.
Extra weight in kids has been linked to problems with executive function, bad memory, attention, mental flexibility, and decision making. So, but then you go, is it the obesity that's doing it, or is it because of what they're eating? Because if the kids are eating a lot of high fructose corn syrup and not getting
food dyes. So I know I shared
sugar, food dyes.
We have seen our children go over to someone's house, come back twitching like they have Tourette's. And I'm like literally watching him, like twitch. And I ask him, what did you have today? And we talked about this before. So I know I've mentioned it. Some of you are just joining our podcast, so you may not have gone back and heard that one. But I asked him, how much sugar did you have today, buddy? And he's like, I don't know. Not much. And he's twitching the whole time. I'm like, do you feel weird? He's like, yeah, I feel a little weird. And so come to find out, he'd had one of those red barrel drinks. He had had like half of it. And that between the food dye and the high fructose corn syrup, that kid was like off the charts. You would have, if you had seen him in that moment, you would have thought he needed to be medicated. So like it is so important that our children are not given the opportunity to just eat whatever they get their hands on. That really is nothing short of poison. And we would definitely not allow our children to drink a gallon of Clorox, but we are allowing them to put all of these nasty things in their body because it's packaged and it looks like it's kid friendly. People, not kid friendly. Get rid of that stuff. That stuff is dangerous.
Yeah, bottom line, it's not obesity. It's the things that cause the obesity that also cause brain issues and brain shrinkage and all that stuff.
Right.
Next one, number 7, is brain injury, like chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is CTE, affects athletes like boxers and football players. Even one serious brain injury can increase risk of Lewy body dementia, abnormal deposits of a certain protein buildup in parts of the brain that are responsible for behavior, cognition, and movement. So Lewy bodies are actually what killed Robin Williams.
Right. You can't even, that's not even diagnosable, right?
Now, many of you were...
diagnosable a word. You can't even diagose it
until after they die.
Correct.
Yeah, only the autopsy. But most people think Robin Williams just killed himself.
He did
and he had depression. He that's not the case. If you watch a documentary, it was a great documentary about his life, about his death. And how his family noticed he was going through these difficult times and so on, and no one knew what was going on. And then after he died, they found out he had Lewy body dementia.
Right.
So if you've had brain trauma, be careful. By the way, if you sleep more, you can cleanse your brain. That's what one of the things sleep does, is clear the protein plaques from your body, like beta amyloid plaques. But I wonder if Lewy bodies are similar. Number 8 was vitamin B deficiency. We know that here you go again with supplements. We know that vitamin B12 is important for many functions in the brain. Even mild deficiency can cause memory loss, he noted. Vitamin B1, also known as thiamine, plays a key role in nerve function, among others, and affects the memory. Very low levels can cause serious brain disease, even though this happens rarely, but lower than normal levels can worsen memory loss. And it made me remember there's a condition called beriberi, which people would get when they had vitamin B1 deficiency. And B1 is found in brown rice. It's high in brown rice, but other rice too. But I think more in brown rice. It's also known as Wernicke's encephalopathy or Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. It's very rare. It's a very rare disease. It's basically in more prevalent countries that are malnourished. But take your vitamins and take whole food vitamins, not synthetic stuff. Excessive drinking for a long period of time can lead to permanent damage. Do we have to even mention that one?
I guess maybe
alcohol will do it. I'm assuming it doesn't say alcohol, but I'm assuming they're talking about alcohol, not excessive drinking of water.
Correct.
Sleep deprivation, lack of sleep can cause mild memory problems.
And here again, I think that ties into the sleep that they mentioned earlier.
Yeah, and it really makes you more susceptible to Alzheimer's, which is beta amyloid plaques build up in the body. So you protect
I wonder
your
too
sleep.
if that plays a huge role in us new moms who are lacking sleep.
Yeah.
And I would say some off the wall stuff, and my memory was not great during that time period. So if you have a new baby at home, give mama some sleep.
That's right. Absolutely.
Help her out.
Number 11 is dysfunctional thyroid. The thyroid is very important for most body functions. When it's underactive, you're tired, slow, and can't think. When it's overactive, you feel on edge, distracted, and can't concentrate. It's very common among women, especially those between 35 and 65. Studies have shown that an underactive thyroid can lead to memory loss, can also affect verbal memory. So, so some of the things is like enlargement of the thyroid area. If you start to grow a bump here, if your eyes start to come forward more, you see more of the white of your eyes. That's called exophthalmos. If the outside of your eyebrows are starting to fade, like the hair's falling out, or you're losing some hair on your head, those are all thyroid issues. You're gaining weight, but you didn't change your diet, you didn't change your exercise, but you start gaining weight, or you start losing weight and you're on the edge all the time. Have your thyroid checked. It's a complicated thing, and some people normally have lower thyroid. Those people should not be on thyroid medication, even though it's lower than normal. So really, you need a doctor and maybe an endocrinologist who really understands thyroid, because again, primary care doctors, they'll do your blood test, they'll put you on thyroid medication. But there are a lot of people who have low thyroid levels. It's normal for them. They don't need to be on thyroid medication. But the minute you add exogenous thyroid into your body, your own thyroid gland will stop producing what it was producing. So you have to be extremely careful with the thyroid. Depression is one. We talked about grief. Depression is the same thing.
Absolutely.
Midlife depression has been known to be a modifiable risk factor for dementia. Symptoms of dementia can very often be confused for symptoms of depression. So sometimes it's not depression, it's dementia. Recent research published in the Journal of Neural Transmission has suggested that people who have experienced depressive episodes may also exhibit gray matter reductions in certain areas of the brain. Now listen, one of the biggest, I almost said cure. I don't want to say cure. One of the biggest factors that impacts depression is activity. What happens with activity is when your joints move, the brain gets fed with positive input. That positive input is what it relies on. People who are depressed don't move much. When you don't move much, literally, they showed this on an episode of House. Remember that TV show House?
Yeah, I was just talking about that yesterday.
This brilliant, like it was like the other version of Doogie Howser, MD. You remember that one?
Yeah.
Anyways, on House, there was a person whose brain was shrinking, and it turned out he was in a body cast, and he couldn't move his arms and legs, and it was causing his brain to shrink. So literally, movement does that. So if you're depressed, you have to go for a big walk. You have to go exercise. If you're healthy, to do rigorous exercise where you sweat and breathe heavy, gosh, that is so good for you. And you do that repeatedly.
And then do it outside during the right season.
Serotonin levels improve. If your GI needs better flora, probiotics can help with depression. But movement is so huge, and it's so true. Depression, because it leads to lack of activity and lack of joy, it does cause your brain to shrink, and then you end up with dementia.
And it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
So that movement is one way to help break that depressive cycle.
Yeah.
So even when you don't feel like it, it's forcing yourself to get out and do those things. Get yourself an accountability partner, a friend who will force you to come and do that when you're
even
when
if
you're
they
at
just
your
hold you
lowest.
down and tickle you.
Yeah, for sure.
Bad idea. Never mind. We're gonna
I'm
get
like, yeah, take that one with a grain of salt.
All right.
Let's move on.
Number 13 is
Infections.
certain infections like chronic meningitis, a slowly developing meningitis, can be caused by many infections and last several weeks, has been known to cause memory problems. It's also possible for fungal infections to lead to brain atrophy. AIDS and encephalitis can also lead to cognitive impairment. So watch out for infections. Number 4 is there are medications. Medications often come with side effects, even though not every patient experiences them. 2 groups of meds, benzodiazepines, which are used to treat anxiety and sleeping problems, and anticholinergics taken for allergies, depression, and hypertension are associated with a higher risk of dementia if taken for months, according to studies reviewed by the Harvard Medical School. How many people take allergy medication long term or depression
there are some
medication?
people who've been on them for years, and people don't tell them not to.
And this thing says you'll end up with dementia if you take it for just months.
You know, what's funny is when we're looking at nutritional deficiencies in our patients, we start with just 3-month protocols. Our goal, there are certain base nutritions that we believe everyone needs every day. Okay. So
fish oil.
Fish oil, like a normal multivitamin, some minerals people may be, deficient in.
Right.
But there are other things that we look at, symptoms that people are experiencing now. and look at what deficiencies could be causing those symptoms, and we look at 3-month protocols to see if we can fix those deficiencies, not so that we can have somebody on something for 6 months, a year, 5 years. Now there may be a few things that maybe somebody needs for the rest of their life, but for the most part the goal is to feed the body, get those deficiencies taken care of, and allow the body to begin to produce what it needs on its own.
Correct.
Right, to create the right environment. So that's the challenge I have with a lot of pharmaceuticals, is we put people on them, and maybe it would have been okay for a short period of time to help with the disease process or something that they needed to get through, but we don't often pull people off of things or go, hey, let's look at this. How are you doing? Maybe you don't need that anymore. Like there is a chance in many cases that somebody doesn't need to be on something for years and years.
Yes, and a lot of people take stuff to fall asleep.
Yeah. And if you have been on something, go to your doctor and have a discussion and ask them point blank, what are the repercussions of long-term use of this? And then make your decision, because sometimes long-term use could be worse than what you're taking it for in the beginning. So be willing to have a conversation with your doctor. And if your doctor won't have that conversation, you might be with the wrong one. You need to be able to have information for you to make great decisions for your own health.
I want to say something about medication that helps you fall asleep. The studies show that you never reach the deepest levels of REM sleep, rapid eye movement. Which means, yes, it helps you fall asleep and you stay asleep through the night with the medication, but you don't get to the level of REM sleep that is required to clean out the plaques in the brain.
Right.
So that person is still, and that may be one of the reasons these people end up with dementia, is because they're not going into a deep enough state of sleep with that medication. They're kind of in a twilight, a little deeper than twilight, and so their brain doesn't clear out those plaques. Number 15 is stroke. A stroke happens when the blood flow to the brain is interrupted. Now, we all know people have had stroke.
We know
part
that
of the brain
it
stops
changes.
functioning. You lose function of half your body and all of that stuff, but it certainly can affect brain function. So, keeping your cardiovascular health priority will help that.
Oh, back up just one more note on number 14, which was the medications. I did want to point out too, some of the medications that we have our kids on, not we, but in general, people have their children on for like ADD and ADHD. Some of those medications, the government, the military won't let individuals enlist if they've been on certain medications for 10 years or more.
Their gray matter shrinks.
Yeah, and it changes, and they're at risk for gun violence, and so they won't do it. They won't issue them a weapon, and so that's another reason why we just need to be cautious about those things, about what we're putting into our bodies, whether it be supplements or pharmaceuticals, anything. You should be conscious of that and know how it's going to change your body and how your body's going to respond. Okay, moving on now. Number 16.
High cholesterol. We talked about this on a separate article a few podcasts ago.
Yeah.
It says high cholesterol. Some research has linked high levels of LDL or bad cholesterol with a buildup of amyloid plaques in the brain. This accumulation can destroy connections between brain cells. The brain depends on cholesterol so much so that a quarter of the cholesterol in the body is found in the small organ, which is the brain. Its role is to surround the nerve cells and protect the electrical impulses and regulate thought, movement, and sensation possible. This is the first time I've seen an article actually talk about the benefits of cholesterol.
I know.
And how the brain is dependent on it, which is why, like, I saw somewhere, don't quote me on this, I may be wrong with the number, but it was like 70 to 80% of breast milk is cholesterol.
Wow.
Yet baby formula has zero cholesterol in it.
Right.
And that baby's brain needs to develop. And it's still growing and it's still increasing in size. Cholesterol is so necessary, and you heard it right here. But yes, for some reason, high levels of low density, they've linked it to. But then I go, what if it's their lifestyle? And just like the obesity thing, because cholesterol is a side effect, or it's a symptom, not a disease.
Correct.
Well, we treat cholesterol like a disease, just like we treat blood pressure like a disease.
Correct.
The cause of cholesterol is produced by your own liver. Why would your brain tell your liver to produce more cholesterol? There's always a reason for it. Find that reason, reduce the reason. Your brain will tell your liver to slow the production of the cholesterol. That's a fact.
And the last one.
Shrinkage of the hippocampus. Gray matter in the left part of the hippocampus has been found to correlate with the performance in memory and language tasks. The small horseshoe-shaped organ is important for consolidating information from short-term to long-term memory. Damage to the organ makes forming and storing new memories difficult. So that
Although we
doesn't
don't-
really say much about.
We don't know how that happens or why it happens or if there's anything you can do about it.
So forget number
unfortunately-
17. You don't have a control over that one.
Yes.
Unless I guess like a tumor or brain cancer, but
Right.
or brain trauma, but that's different.
Correct.
Well, listen, guys, we only got through one article,
But we knew that that was a big one.
Yeah.
And we really wanted to touch because we hear that word stress so much, and there's so many misconceptions
Yeah.
about what stress is and how it affects the body. And there's a lot of generalizations that are just made that says just reduce your stress. But we all know that that's really not possible. We need to strengthen our bodies, strengthen our minds, strengthen our circle of influence and our support system, so that we can figure out how to handle more of this.
I was talking to our youngest son. He's in second grade. I said, do you know you have a spelling test tomorrow? He hadn't studied because there was a snow day yesterday and they were off school. And he goes, but spelling is so easy. So he doesn't get stressed for that spelling test. But I promise you, there's somebody in his class who gets stressed for that same spelling test. What's the difference? One of them is better at spelling than the other one. So if that other one would work hard and learn and be able to spell better,
or maybe one has more confidence than the other.
either way, less stress. Same things, test, two different responses.
Right.
Be the person who can handle stress better.
Absolutely.
Read my book, Cracking the Stress Secret: How to Turn Pressure into Power.
And join us next week, because
We'll be
we
back.
have some more great
Yeah,
articles.
we had like another 10 articles to go through. So
We'll keep going.
all right. Take care. God bless you. Thanks for joining us.
See you next time.